So for the next 40 minutes, we'll see a couple of demonstrations. We'll see how it is possible to remotely cause a blackout on a wireless lighting system. We'll see a demonstration of how a simple design issue in a baby monitor can put your privacy at risk. We'll see similarly a wireless switch where you can turn off appliances if you have access to the internal network. But before we jump into these things, let's take a moment to talk about why we need to have this discussion. So we estimate that by 2020, the affluent homes and offices in Europe and America, that we will have about 50 billion Internet of Things, approximately 30 per individual. What is IoT? IoT is basically wireless devices with sensors that enhance our lives. So I just gave you a couple of examples when I started. Things like wireless light bulbs, thermostats, baby monitors, door locks. The new real estate, when it comes to high-rise condos or homes and apartments, are likely in the next couple of years to come outfitted with these gadgets. So in order for us, and the other thing about the concept of IoT is today, if you have a computer in your home that has malware on it, what is the consequences that you face? You face things like somebody might steal your credit card information, access to your Gmail or your Facebook and things like that. But in the future, if you have a computer on your local network, as we will see, that has malware on it, you could have physical consequences that somebody could exploit. So as we look into the future, we want to securely enable these wonderful gadgets. But in order for us to have this conversation and build a secure roadmap to get to 2020, we can have generic discussions all we want. We know about authentication, we know about authorization, we know about access controls and those sorts of things. But I think in order for us to have a real conversation, we need to take a look at the IoT devices that are in the market today and figure out what are we doing wrong so that as we look into the future, we have a solid roadmap. And so in order to have that conversation, I've picked on these 4 devices. We'll start with the Philips lighting system, which you can walk into the Apple store. I think they sell it on Amazon now too, and buy. And the starter pack comes with 3 LED bulbs and a bridge, and you can extend that with as many bulbs as you want. There may be a limit to maybe 60. And with these, so you put these, replace these bulbs in your apartment with the Hue bulbs, and then with your iOS app or your Android app, you can turn the lights on or off or into any one of 6 million colors. You can also have geofencing, so as you leave your apartment or your home, the lights go off and they come back on as you arrive. It's a really great product. So we'll take a look at the architectural issues, the security issues with that product. Then we'll take a look at the Belkin Wemo baby monitor, which is pretty clear, it's a baby monitor. And the Belkin Wemo switch, which you plug in any appliance you want, like an iron or a lamp, and then you can remotely from anywhere in the world turn that on or off. And of course, the Belkin Wi-Fi netcam. And the other reason we need to have this discussion and take a look at these popular devices in the market today is we all know that as we look into the future, that manufacturers are likely to build on the current platform so that they're backwards compatible. So we'll start with the Philips Hue personal wireless lighting system. This is my apartment. As you can see, we can have a lot of fun with this, right? Yeah, Quagmire would approve. So how does it work? So you buy the starter pack with the 3 bulbs, and the bridge speaks to the bulbs using the Zigbee protocol. The bridge also connects to your router through Ethernet cable, and it establishes an outbound connection, an outbound TCP SSL connection to a Philips resource out on the internet. And then you have the iOS app. There's also an Android app. You can even log into meethue.com and do it over the web. And with this app, you can control the bulbs locally, or if you're anywhere in the world. So the Hue app connects to the bridge directly if you're in the same network segment, or through the Philips server if you're external. So to look at how it's architected, one of the things I asked myself is how does the Hue app, when I first launch it, know where the bridge is when I'm in the local network? Because you have to be local in order to set it up for the first time. So when you man in the middle the Hue app, what it basically does is it goes to the meethue.com/API/NUPNP URL. And so when the bridge comes online, it also connects to the Philips server and says, here's my internal network, here's my MAC address, and here's my device ID, which is basically a serial number. And if you're in the same network segment and you hit that, you'll get that information. So the first thing your iOS app or your Android app does is hits that URL and it finds the local IP address of the bridge and the serial number. One issue with this URL is the access control allow origin is set to star, which basically is not a good thing. It means that any website in the world can tell that you have the Hue system and the serial ID and the local MAC address. There's not too many consequences to this besides the fact that people can know that you have the system. But I just highlighted that. So when you first launch the app goes to that URL, figures out where the bridge is, connects to the bridge, and it issues a post request, which we'll see what that post request looks like. And you have 30 seconds to go to the physical bridge and press the button on it to prove that you own the bridge and you have physical access to it. And so in the background, the iOS app submits this post request directly to the local bridge, right? And it includes a username, which for the first time when I looked at it appeared to be fairly random. And then when this post request is issued, if you press the button within 30 seconds, the bridge responds with OK, and it grants you authorization, where that username is basically an access token. And if you know that access token, then you can connect directly to the bridge locally and issue any command you want. So as I was playing around with this, I installed the Hue app the first time, intercepted this post request. I was like, OK, well, this looks like a fairly random session token that the app is generating itself. And then I had to reinstall iOS, and I reinstalled the Hue app, and then it magically still worked. So I was like, what? And then one of the things I realized is basically the username is the MD5 hash of the MAC address of the iPhone, which is probably not the best way to generate tokens. So then I wrote this malware script. So let's assume one of the computers in your home has malware, or the fact that you browsed your website, there's a Java exploit, somebody owns your browser, what can they do? And the whole argument of, well, it's only a local issue is out the door, because if we're talking about 30 devices in your home in the future, just hiding behind your router is not an option anymore. So with that in mind, so what this script does, it hits the URL I talked about, finds the IP address of the bridge, and if it can't find it, it just kind of sleeps for a while and keeps trying. And then what it does is, assuming this is run on the machine that is owned, it just basically does an arp-a to see the MAC address that are known to be flying around in the air, computes an MD5 of every one of them, and then it hits the bridge directly and issues a turn off all lights command. And if any one of them work, so if none of the ARP entries work, it just kind of sleeps for a while and keeps trying and trying and trying. At the moment one of them works, it just goes into an infinite loop and just says lights off, lights off, lights off, lights off. And it kind of sleeps for half a second because the bridge can't keep up with that many requests. So let's look at a demonstration of this. By the way, if you go to my website, I have a 30-40 page paper on a lot of the details on the architecture, not just this one issue. So if you're interested, take a look. So quickly, you'll see the victim browsing to a website and the lights go off. See? And so just to see this in slow motion, let's assume the attacker is kind of doing this manually so you can see what's going on behind the scenes. So the victim's connected, a Java exploit, and the Java exploit is issued. And once the Java exploit is issued, we upload the malware script and we run it. And then we run the script, right? So it finds that success. So here's the solution to the problem. Uh, and then, so here's the victim lighting a candle, and then he realizes that the gadgets are still working and that the neighbors have electricity. So there's something wrong here. And the way to override it is if you switch the lights off and on again, they try to come on, but remember we have an infinite loop, so the lights kind of flicker on and then go off again. By the way, you get a mini tour of my apartment as well. So if you unplug the bridge, however, and you flick the lights back on, it comes on, because now the script can't talk to the bridge. But the moment you reconnect the bridge, guess what happens? There is an API thing that you can like post request to the bridge. So if you can teach your grandmother to do that and deregister the device, she could be safer. But the moment you re-register the same device, so the script realizes that it doesn't work and it goes back into the ARP loop. But the moment you re-register the same device again, because you have the MAC address association there, right? So we can kind of see why this is a bad idea. You know, with the Hue department, I tried to contact them for about a month. The only way I could contact them was through their Twitter marketing thing, and I direct messaged them 3 times to say, I have something I really want to report to you, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and tell me. And I said, we're bound by 140 characters here. Can I email somebody? And they're like, oh, just go ahead and put it here. I'm like, no. So when this thing hit the press, I did have a conversation with an executive from the IT side of things, and we had a good conversation on why this is a bad idea. And in September, I believe they did fix this issue. Now it's not the MD5, the Mac, it's something else. I haven't spent time to look at how they're doing it, but this issue doesn't exist anymore, thankfully. However, if you own a Hue system and you've authorized an iPhone or an iPad or an Android device before, the new fix does not re-register that. So you kind of have the legacy issue there. The other thing, this is not just about the Hue system, but as we start to look into the future when we're going to have things like light bulbs and other devices that we depend on for physical security, the other way you can control this is by the website. So now we ask a very fundamental question, right? Is I can log into the Hue website and I know your email address. What's the password complexity like? It's basically just 6 characters. We can pick anything. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the saving grace there is there's a 1-minute lockout where we failed 2 attempts. The thing that worries me about just using a password these days is I think we had a 2 million username password leak about a couple of days ago. And we know people are going to reuse, and they do reuse passwords. So one of the things, food for thought here as we look into 2020, where these devices are going to become part of our lives, just a regular static password may not be the right solution. The other concept here, not just with Hue, but the other IoT devices as well, is they connect to a platform called IFTTT, which stands for if this, then that, where you can kind of cook up recipes. So for example, when you log into IFTTT, you can authorize your Facebook, your Gmail, your LinkedIn, and also your Hue system through OAuth. And now the IFTTT can like, tie all these things together. You can do stupid things like if my grandma emails me, turn off the bathroom light. I don't know why you would do that, but but you can do a lot of creative things with this, right? And so the other thing that caught my attention was it's not just security and breaking into things, it's can somebody write a recipe that can be abused? So I found this really fun recipe called, well, I don't know what it's called, but basically what it does is you tie your Hue system to it and you have your Facebook on, and you can say, if somebody tags me on a photo, believe me, people actually use this. When somebody tags me on a photo in Facebook, so if you have 15 bulbs, pick 15 random pixels and change the color of the bulbs to that pixel. Right? So if I'm standing right outside your door at night and I want to kick your ass, I'll just upload a black photo and tag you. Guess what will happen? All your lights will go off. So these are things to be thinking about, right? And the other issue here is IFTTT in general, and if this thing takes off, I mean, imagine if IFTTT's platform were compromised. The physical power you would have, where you're now affecting, you're opening doors and shutting off people's lights. So the conversation I'm having here is that I don't think it's a stretch to say that the next generation of malware, as these devices become popular in our homes and offices, I mean, what does a malware do these days? It'll install a keylogger, look for other machines on your local network and try to infect them, right? My hypothesis is that the future generation malware will not only just do that, but for example, hit that URL to say, is this home outfitted with a wireless lighting system? Yes, let's see if I have control over this. So now if I'm a botnet herder, not only do I have people's passwords, but I have a dashboard where I can actually, influence physical activity in their lives. So that's really my brainstorming on this product. So we'll move to the baby monitor. So baby monitor basically hops on your Wi-Fi, and then you have the iOS app. I think they only have an iOS app. They don't have an Android one. And once it's set up, it uses the SIP protocol through a server out on the Amazon cloud, and that's how you can basically listen to your baby or whatever room the device is installed in. Even before I started to actually look into the details of this product, I ran into this review, and this review is on a video review on Amazon by a guy who's not even technical. He was expecting a baby, and he was kind of reviewing baby monitors. And he writes, the other is a very poor security model that leaves the Wemo open to unwelcome monitoring. The Wemo allows any iOS device on your network to connect to it and listen to it without a password. If that's not bad enough, when an iPhone has connected once on the local network, it can later tune into the baby monitor from anywhere in the world. So basically what this means is you throw a party at home, you invite a couple of friends, one of them requests access to your local Wi-Fi, and you grant it. He or she launches the Wemo baby monitor, it automatically just works. And then if he or she leaves and goes to Europe, they can still listen in. There's no password required. And this is by design. You can kind of understand why somebody would design it this way, right? Because parents, when they want to install this thing, they don't want to mess around with passwords. And so I can kind of get the business case of it. But just to show you a video of that this is actually designed the way the reviewer calls out. I also have a paper on this and the other products on my website. Okay. So you launch the Wemo app when you're on the local network. And it finds the baby. It basically does UPnP to find the baby monitor. And we'll see in the background what post request is issuing to get access. I'll show you what that looks like. And then you basically click on listen on the top right. I love how it says buffering. It reminds me of Real Player. So we'll stop, and we'll go back to the home screen, and we'll disable Wi-Fi, so now we're on 4G. So you'll simulate somebody who's external. And you go and you can kind of listen in, and it just works. Okay, so when you first launch the app, it basically does UPnP to find the IP address of the baby monitor, and then it basically issues this post request. That's the iOS app that's doing this. And it picks a device ID, which seems fairly random. And so by the way, the origin policy is not set to star in this one. If it had, that would be really bad. As you can see, an external website with an iframe can register itself. And the baby monitor responds, and it not only, it echoes back the token that the iOS app gave it, as well as its own serial number. And so with these two things, when you click on listen, it basically uses SIP. The from address is the token that the iOS app, and the to address of the SIP is the actual serial number of the baby monitor, and that's basically how it works. So the problem with this is this not your creepy friend listening into your baby, right? It's about, we're building on the concept of future generation malware. Now again, if I'm a malware author, what would I do? First, check if the Hue light system works, is existing. If it's yes, try to get a token. Next, do a UPnP, see if there's a baby monitor. Yes, issue that post request, get the token, ferry it back to the botnet owner. So now we're kind of building on the whole concept of where things can really go wrong. The whole concept of, oh, it's behind the router and it's in the local LAN doesn't fly anymore, as we start to build on all these devices in our homes. And so the other product is a local Wi-Fi switch, which actually uses UPnP in the exact same post request as the baby monitor. So again, if you have one machine that's owned, a malware script author can do UPnP, register the token, send the token back externally, and you can now start to control the switch. There is a functionality where if you're local in your home, you can kind of see which devices have registered token, disable remote functionality. So there's that. So this is the exact same post request, right? Oh no, this is the actual post request where you connect to the switch directly and you issue that command, basic event, and the binary state set to 0. That means turn the appliance off. So I wanted to write a quick little script that does the same thing we saw on the light bulb side of things. And I was like, oh, no, I got to figure out how to do UPnP, then I have to figure out. But there's already a Vimo hacking Python framework, and the individual who wrote this did not mean hacking in the security terms, context of things. They're just trying to get this thing working. And so my Python script is about 5 lines, right? It's basically import that, off, sleep for 5 seconds, off. Of course, if you're a malware author or botnet herder, you're probably not gonna do this to, you'll probably save it for when you really need it, but this is just a demonstration. So let's take a look at, if you're the victim, one of your computers own this malware and the script that I showed you with the framework, what can go wrong? So this is, you can see the switch turns off. You try to turn it on. Turns off again. You can see where I'm going with this. So let's skip to the last product, the Netcam. The Netcam actually was really well designed. Everything was SSL. Even the iOS app, when you needed to, even if you're local, would connect to the cloud and you have to enter a username and password. There's complexity requirements. You can go to the website. It's all SSL. The camera connects through SSL to the cloud. This is the first product I looked at. I said, okay, we're not, committing age-old crimes like not using SSL and relying on the local networks. It's really, really well done. And then I noticed this. The camera, once in a while, would establish a random TCP connection in clear and send your username and password out. I haven't figured out why it's doing this. Huh? From local to remote, outside. Yeah, see, the destination is 66.160. So, I did email support, try to contact the security department. In fact, I sent them this very screenshot, and I think the person responded with, "What tool are you using? How did you create this issue?" And I was like, I was pretty polite. I said, "Look, if you send this to somebody in the security department and they don't know what this tool is, what Wireshark is, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody in the team, if you contact the right person, will know, oh yeah, I know this works, we need to figure this out. I mean, this can be a surprise. And so, I don't know what they've done with it. And so yeah, that's how it works. So if you were chilling at your home with their horse mask, drinking Kettle One, you could be found out. So I mean, on all seriousness, passwords like these flying on the clear, imagine if you're Comcast, like a heavyweight like Comcast, and you just sniff for this traffic. I mean, the invasion of privacy here is pretty gross. So I'm going to recap here. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about 30 billion or 50 billion devices in America and Europe by 2020. The theme that I want you to go away with is the concept of hiding behind the perimeter. We know in the enterprise is not accepted anymore, even though it's a very complex issue. But in our homes, that's exactly what we do. We put everything on a local network. And I think so far we're doing okay. But as we start to bring these devices into our homes, we can't let issues like this exist. That's really the point of my presentation. Okay. So I'll stop here for a Q&A if anybody has questions. Sure.
Have you looked into any of the local cloud storage devices? They use UPnP and rendezvous through external websites?
I have not.
Like the Western Digital My Cloud.
Yeah. No, I've not. But that's something interesting. Maybe I will take a look. Yeah. Could you replay the token? In what sense? Uh-huh. Well, if you have the token, so if you have the token, you'll probably also have the serial number, then you can use a SIP client. Just connect to the Bay monitor directly forever. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Sure. Model number on the camera, I don't know, but if you give me your email later, I'll go home and take a look. Do you have one? Okay, all right, cool. Yeah.
Have you investigated any devices that you found had a good security model, and what
Had
were
a
the
good
features?
security model?
Yeah, that didn't have these kinds of, and what
Yeah.
were the features of them that were well implemented?
I actually emailed the CTO of a company called Smart Things this weekend. We had a wonderful conversation. I just didn't have enough time to put the good stuff in here. So Smart Things is a startup. I think it started on Kickstarter, but I read somewhere they got a couple million in VC funding last month or so. And they make door sensors, motion sensors, kind of like the Wemo-like devices. And I actually had emailed him to tell him that they've actually, from everything I've looked at, they've done this right. So the way it works is you also get a bridge. The bridge connects on local Ethernet. It establishes an outbound connection. All the devices, the sensors they have use Zigbee Pro, right? I'm not that interested in being in physical vicinity. So Zigbee Pro, I'm okay with that. But when you use the Smart Things iPhone app to control your devices, even if you're local, you have to have a username and password with complexity requirements, and everything connects to the cloud. So there's no inbound connections, there's no UPnP, and when you put in your username and password in the iOS app, it gets the token expires once in a while. And it's a very innovative company. They have something called the physical graph, which kind of emulates what Facebook has with social graph, where instead of going the IFTTT route, what they're doing is they're saying, when we start to automate our stuff in the future, it's not just going to be if this, then that. It can be a little bit more complicated than that. So they have their own scripting engine, and you can tie it into Twilio and other things like that. And basically, the concept of the physical graph is if something changes in your physical world, your graph online changes. But if you change programmatically something in the graph, it has a physical effect on a device. So Smart Things is, I'm a big fan of how they're doing it. Any more questions? All right, well, thanks.